He was a scientist, an engineer, a theologian, a man of reason and calculation. He was respected in royal circles. He wrote books on mining, metallurgy, astronomy, and the structure of the brain. But one day, at the age of 56, something happened to him that turned not only his life upside down, but his entire understanding of reality. Emanuel Swedenborg, a man who claimed to have entered the other world, and returned, not once, but almost every night, for decades. He did not seek fame, he did not create sects. He simply wrote, in detail, precisely, as if he were recording a report from another dimension, and his descriptions were so detailed that they seemed more like a guidebook than metaphors. But why were these texts silenced for centuries? Why even today do people prefer not to speak of them aloud? He claimed, "I have been there, and I know what heaven looks like, and what hell does. And if you think these are going to be classical images, you are mistaken. According to Swedenborg, heaven is not a place. It is a state of love, not ecstatic or euphoric, but deep, wise, all-encompassing. There, each soul is a feeling, purity of thought, intention. Everything is transparent. You cannot hide your essence, and you don't need to." He wrote, "In heaven, everyone finds themselves among those who are close to them in spirit, not by blood, not by culture, but by the vibration of the heart." It sounds beautiful, but there is another side. Hell, according to him, was not a place of torment with cauldrons and demons. It was a place where souls could not see beyond themselves. Everything was foggy, smoky. There was no screaming, there were arguments, endless, senseless. Everything boiled down to one thing, ego. "In hell," he wrote, "everyone tries to prove they are right, and no one hears each other. And here begins the most interesting part." He claimed, "No one ends up in hell by force. The soul chooses what is closer to it, light or shadow." He said, "After death, you don't become someone else. You simply become yourself without the mask." And that perhaps is the scariest part, because, according to him, hell is not punishment. It is a mirror. And if you were used to living in hatred, envy, in the desire to control, you end up in a place where all of that intensifies, because no one holds you back anymore. There are no rules, no body, only you and your essence. Swedenborg said that souls do not simply die and instantly appear somewhere. There is a transition. There is a moment when everything you knew begins to peel away, and what remains is only you, the real you. He described it as an inner awakening, as if you suddenly realized that you had been asleep your whole life, that everything you held on to, titles, possessions, fears, status, no longer carries any weight. He called it the stripping of the soul. "You stand before yourself," he wrote, "and you can no longer look away. You can no longer lie." He claimed to have seen souls that rose immediately upward, into bright realms where joy reigns, but not the kind found in the body. There is silence, acceptance, as if someone is looking at you and understands everything, even the things you yourself didn't understand during life. But there were others, those who wandered, who were afraid, who couldn't let go of the earthly. They clung to power, to resentment, to familiar desires. They didn't understand they had died. They looked for a way out, but found only reflections of their own fears. He wrote, "Some souls build their own hell, a chamber in which they repeat the same thought, the same reproach, the same regret." That is why he believed purification begins during life, because death is not a magic button. It is simply a continuation, a deepening of who you were. Once, he claimed, he accompanied a soul from the moment of death to entry into the realm of light. He described it like this. First, surprise. The body does not move, but you exist. You hear everything, see everything, but no one sees you. Then comes silence, gentle like morning, and a voice, not external, internal. It says, remember, and you begin to remember. Not facts, feelings, glances, everything you gave to others, everything you didn't have time for, everything you turned away from. He called it a moment of revelation, not judgment, not punishment, but truth, truth without defense. And in that moment, as he said, the soul makes a choice to rise or to stay. No one forces. There are no commands, only inner pull, toward the light, if that is what you sought, or downward, if you turned away from it all your life. He wrote that souls in hell do not consider themselves bad. They believe they were denied, that the world was against them, that no one understood them. They simmer in their own sense of righteousness, and that is their torment. In heaven, according to him, there is no pride. There is no feeling of I achieved. There is only the feeling of I remembered who I am, and that is not victory. That is peace, the very peace we seek all our lives without even realizing it. Swedenborg described the afterlife not as something distant. He claimed that heaven and hell are not after, they are here. We simply do not see them. He called it a parallel plane, layers that exist next to us, around us, within us. He wrote, "We already live in the world we will enter after death. It's just that now it is inside. Later it will become outside." And that was the most unsettling part, because if you carry envy, malice, contempt within, you are already living in hell. And if there is love, compassion, silence in you, you are already touching heaven. He said, "The transition is not a leap, it is an unfolding, like a bud that blossoms not into a flower, but into itself." He described how many souls after death do not seek the light, but others, relatives, loved ones, those they lost. He claimed to have seen reunions, and that they were not dream scenes, not allegories, but real vivid moments, embraces without a body, understanding without words. He wrote, "You recognize a soul not by face, but by warmth. It can be soft, like a touch, or strong, like a memory. But not all encounters bring joy." He said that a soul sometimes meets what it had run from, the one it betrayed, the one it hurt, and then, not reproaches, just a gaze, a single look, without blame, but with a question, and that gaze stays inside forever. There are no punishments there, but there are reflections, he wrote, and they are more honest than any words. Sometimes he spoke of those who cannot leave, the stuck, souls so attached to the earthly that they continue to wander nearby. He didn't call them ghosts. He said, shadows of desire. They are not evil. They are lost. They cling to a home, a person, an object, as to an anchor, and they cannot rise until they let go, or until they are let go. He claimed that some of them don't even know they are dead. They think they are sleeping, or ill, or simply lost. And that is more terrifying than hell, because it is emptiness. Swedenborg said that a soul that wants to leave, leaves easily. It is drawn, it is called, but a soul that is bound remains. And that is why, in his words, forgiveness is so important, not for morality, but so that no one is held, not even the dead. Forgiveness is not an act of kindness. It is a pair of scissors that cuts the thread between worlds. And when you forgive, you free not only them, you free yourself. Swedenborg did not consider his visions hallucinations. He called them the opening of the eyes of the spirit. According to him, every person has two types of sight: the outer one, what we call reality, and the inner one, what the soul sees. And when the body dies, the inner sight becomes the only one. He wrote, "After death, you do not lose your sight. You just no longer see lies." One day, he claimed, he witnessed a soul that had just left the body trying to speak to the living. It called out, it reached out, but no one responded. He wrote that the soul cried, not from pain, but from loneliness, from being there, yet not being felt. Many souls at the moment of death feel not fear, but surprise, because death is not what they expected. There is no ringing, no falling, only an opened silence. Swedenborg described that after the transition, the soul enters a space where nothing is imposed. It is not led, not directed. There is no judgment, no verdict. There is only one thing, attraction. The soul begins to move toward what is closest to it in essence, and if there was darkness in you, you go into darkness, not because you must, but because it is yours. He wrote, "You do not walk with feet, you move with desire. The soul is will, bare and pure." And it was this, he said, that made hell real, not as a place, but as a zone filled with desires that cannot be fulfilled, greed that cannot be satisfied, fear that doesn't go away, anger that does not cool, because there is no body, no time, no distractions. There is only you and what you truly want. But in heaven, he said, desires are simple: to be near, to help, to give light. And because of that, souls there are free, because they ask for nothing. They only give. He claimed that in one of his experiences, he met a being that was neither male nor female. It glowed with a soft golden light and spoke not in words but in feelings, and he understood that this was not an angel. It was a soul, very old, very wise. It said, "You do not have to be afraid. Everything you will see after death is you, without decorations, without noise, without role-play." Swedenborg repeated, "We do not go to heaven or hell. We go into ourselves. And if you are not ready, you become afraid. But if you are ready, you remember." Swedenborg did not consider himself chosen. He did not seek followers. He simply wrote what he saw, what he felt, and what wouldn't let him sleep. He said that the afterlife is not a mystery. It is memory, a memory each of us once had, but which became too quiet to hear. He wrote, "When a person dies, they do not disappear. They simply stop being a body, but they do not stop being themselves." And here's the most important thing. He did not divide souls into the worthy and the lost. He believed that every soul has a path, and every one, someday, will return to the light, even the one now in the shadows. Hell is not forever, he said. It's just a sleep that's gone on too long, and heaven, it's awakening. He believed that the soul chooses when to move on, that it needs no command, only understanding, only an inner shift. He wrote, "I saw souls who had slept for centuries, and one day, through someone's touch, through a prayer, through music, they woke up, slowly, gently, without fear, and they began to walk." He said that even the dead can change, that even beyond the veil, love is possible, because where time ends, essence begins. He wrote, "Heaven is not a reward. It is a state you enter when you stop being only yourself and become part." Swedenborg died in the year 1772, peacefully, alone. His final words were simple: Now I see clearly. But his descriptions remained. His records, his words, which gathered dust for decades, they were not burned, not banned, just forgotten. And now they speak again. And maybe not by accident. Because, as he wrote, no one finds truth by chance. Truth finds those who are ready to hear it. If you've read this far, perhaps you've already felt it. There inside, a subtle recognition, something familiar, something that can't be explained, but also can't be forgotten. Maybe this is not just a text, but a reminder. And if you feel it, don't stay silent. Leave a comment about what you feel. One word is enough. Sometimes that one word helps someone else realize they are not alone. If it touched you, click like. It will help this message reach those who are searching right now for answers, or silence, or light, because each of us is on a journey, and maybe, just maybe, someone will hear these words and remember that death is not the end, and life is the road home.